Hi, my fellow Americans. I'm Dr. Stephen Clark Bradley, and this is what I think. We're going to carry on with video 3 now about the subject of the Hunter Biden's laptop that was discovered by the New York Post and the emails that they were able to drag out that is a true treasure trove of evil information that proves that Joe Biden has been lying to the American people. He didn't just start that, he's been doing that his whole life. But now he's running for president of the United States against a great president, and that his party, the Democrat-Socialists, has sought to destroy since the very day he announced his first candidacy in 2016. Just unbelievable. So we were looking at this, so we left off our last video showing some of the emails that were written from Pozharsky, from the Ukraine and from Burisma to Hunter Biden, which actually revealed, though Vice President Joe Biden, Vice President at the time, had said he had never met with any of them and said that he had never spoken to his son about any of his dealings with the Ukraine, and later we'll see with China. He is a complete liar, and he wants to be your president. Don't be ridiculous, any Americans, please. Don't vote for a man like that. We have a great man. You don't have to like Donald Trump's personality, but you must admire the transparency and the honesty and what he's done for the country. This man will destroy your country, my country, and it will be absolutely a place not worth living in, investing in, if the Democrat-Socialists win the White House and win Congress. We have to prevent this. Go out and vote. Let's press on here. The most interesting thing is at the time that Joe Biden met with Pozharsky from the Ukraine, it was just before he went to the Ukraine and told the president that he needed to fire the investigator Shokin, and that if he didn't, Viktor Shokin was investigating Burisma, which was where Hunter Biden was on the board there, which means he was investigating Joe Biden's son, Hunter, as well. And just before that happened, he's met with Pozharsky in America, even though he said he didn't, and said he can't remember doing it, and that it wasn't on his schedule. Of course it's not on your schedule. We're not stupid. You think we're stupid, but we're not. We're smart. American people built this country, not the government, and we're going to keep it the way we want it to be. But, so that really adds to the weight and the depth of the crime that he's done here. At that time, the Obama administration had promised the Ukraine $1 billion in credit, credit guarantees, and that Joe Biden had been put in charge of the Ukraine. That's very convenient, isn't it? And so he was in charge of all the Ukrainian dealings that the Obama administration was doing there. And Joe Biden, as we know his great, very famous story, he likes to brag about himself. You know, I saw a commercial, Joe Biden doesn't need to be on TV. He doesn't need to see himself. Yes, he does. He's a complete narcissist. And one day, after he left the vice presidency, he was saying, well, I met with the president of the Ukraine, and I told him, either you fire Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor who was investigating the Ukraine, or you're not going to get the $1 billion. We know the story, right? And he said, well, you're not going to get it. And he said, well, you don't have any power to do that. And he said, call the president. And then Joe Biden looked at everybody as he was recounting his great story and said, well, son of a bitch. He got fired. Yeah, you remember the story? You've heard it many times, I'm sure. What makes that terrible is that he met with Pozharsky just prior to that, which means we know what they discussed when they got together, even though it's supposed to be a meeting that never happened, and it's supposed to be a conversation that Joe Biden never had with family, with his brother, with his son, or even distant family, he said. But we know they met together, and he lied to the American people, and we know what they discussed. They discussed getting rid of that prosecutor because his son was on the board, and they were doing illegal things. And that money was going to Joe Biden as well. And that's what we want to get into now. But, I want to just share with you this Shulkin. he actually, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long, but he has an absolute recording of when he talked to Joe Biden after Joe Biden threatened him he wouldn't give him the $1 billion. He was leaving in 6 hours, and within 6 hours, the prosecutor needed to be fired. Shokin later had a phone call with Joe Biden, and he recorded it. And this is what Shokin said on December 3rd, 2015. Not Shokin, let me correct myself. Poroshenko, the president, had a conversation with Joe Biden, and he's talking about how he did what he promised and fired Viktor Shokin, who was the prosecutor. And this is what Poroshenko, the president of the Ukraine, said to Vice President Biden, who was vice president at the time. Poroshenko said, "Yesterday I met with General Prosecutor Shokin, and despite the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about him doing something wrong. I especially asked him, the day before yesterday, I specially asked him to resign." Now, why did he do it? There's much more. I'm not going to read any more of that, but so much more in the conversation that was recorded. But even though he says right here, the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, did nothing wrong, was doing his job, was investigating not only Burisma, but other things, but he was investigating Burisma, and Joe Biden said, if you don't fire him, no $1 billion for you. And here, Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, said, our prosecutor did nothing wrong, but in spite of all that, because you're being a complete tyrant, he didn't use those words, but that's what he means, I fired him, and he's gone. Now, why did he do that? Because Joe Biden knows he was embezzling money, laundering money from the Ukraine, and we can prove it. Now, it's very interesting. You probably heard some of this on the news also. All right. He had a payment plan to who was going to get the money from China, and from that we're going to move into China in a minute. But he said in one of the emails that they found on Hunter Biden's laptop, it said that 10% was going to go to H, the letter H, which stands for Hunter. And 10% was going to go to the big guy, but held by H. So in other words, Hunter was going to get 10% of all the money. And he had a list of 5 different people, many different people. But he said H was getting 10%, and H was holding 10% for the big guy. Who's the big guy? Well, of course, that's Joe Biden, his father. He's the big guy. Because now, why didn't he just give it directly to Joe Biden? That's because when you launder money, you don't get the dirt on you. You let somebody else get the dirt on them. And that was Hunter Biden's job, to get the dirt on him. Now, recently, Joe Biden and his wife came out and said, well, you can look at our tax records and everything's there. Of course it's not on the tax records. They know when they do their taxes, if they're running for office, they're going to be, scrutinized and looked at and, streamed through. They wouldn't put it on there. And it would be illegal for him to do that. But it's technically not illegal for his son or his family member or a brother or any of them to amass the money, keep it for themselves, but to dedicate the money, 10% of all the money coming in from the Ukraine and from China, to his father, the big guy. That's Joe Biden. That's the man that perhaps you're about to vote for. Think about that. That's the man who, while he was vice president of the United States, did not take your interest into consideration, but took his own interest into consideration. It's interesting also, in one of the emails, Hunter Biden was writing to his sister, and he said, I have been taking care of this family for 30 years. He said, Mom and Dad don't have money. At that time, they must not have had money, huh? Interesting. Where'd they get the money? Joe Biden's only had one job his whole life, and that was senator and vice president, in government. How did he become so rich? He owns many homes now, walled community, and with in a whole complex. How did he do that? How do any of them do that? But he was just a common man. He was a lawyer that really never practiced law. How did he get rich? So Hunter said in his email to his sister that they found, he said, "Don't you worry. I'm not going to take 50% of the money, all right, the way our person did. In other words, whatever money you make, you don't have to give 50% to Dad like I do. I give him 50% of everything." That's how he got rich, through his son. He abused his son. Can you imagine? His son at the time was a crack addict. Absolutely. Probably still is today. I guarantee it. And he's over there in China and in Ukraine. Come on, let's face it. If someone was kicked out of the Navy and his public record, and he's a crack addict, would you hire him? They wouldn't hire him because of his ability or because of his knowledge. They hired him because of his dad, Joe Biden. And half of the money that he got went to his dad, the big guy. Still want to vote for him? Some of you will say yes. And that's sad. You need to put your country in the number one slot. Put your country first. Can you imagine? If you don't love your country, put your kids first. How many of you saved, slaved, worked hard, put money away to give your children a better life than you ever had? Every parent that loves their children wants to do that. And you're ready to vote for a man like that who will throw it all away. 50 Cent, the rapper, all right? He's no Trump lover, and he's normally votes Democrat. He looked at Joe Biden's tax plan and said, "I don't want to be 20 cent. I want to be 50 cent because his tax plan will destroy me." That's exactly what's coming your way if this guy wins. And he's a traitor. Let's move into the Chinese connection here and show exactly how Joe Biden benefited. 10% of all the Chinese funds would go to the big guy. The big guy is Joe Biden. Hunter Biden was offered a job when Joe Biden took his son with him. I talked about this in other emails, to Beijing in Air Force Two, and brought his son Hunter Biden with him. Joe Biden went out to the government, and Hunter went out and visited all these businesses who offered him equity firm business, and he brought home $1.5 billion. And you know what that means? 50% of that went to his dad, Joe Biden. What's 50% of $1 billion? $500 million? Yeah, you could buy a lot of homes with that. And then also on top of that, he said 10 held by H or Hunter for the big guy. So he's holding the money for Biden. Let me just read here what I've written down. He revealed what he knows about Hunter Biden, his father, Joe Biden, James Biden, vice president, the brother of the vice president, the whole Biden corrupt money laundering scheme. Now, what am I talking about? It has now just come out that one of Hunter Biden's partners or associates is now spilling the beans. This is Bevan Cooney, who was one of the partners with Hunter Biden, who got part of the money that they were talking about in that scheme, that payment scheme. And he ended up going to prison because he got in trouble with an equity business and went to prison. And he has now given control of his Gmail account to two different journalists, one very famous, Peter Schweitzer, that we see on Fox News a lot, and Matthew Tierman. All right, both of them now have been given access to Bevan Cooney, Hunter Biden's associate, to all the emails on his Gmail account. Over 25,000 emails have now been amassed by these two journalists at the permission of Bevan Cooney, who is now ready to spill the beans and to turn on Hunter Biden, because he ended up taking one for the team, ended up going to prison, and they're off scot-free. Okay? And as I said earlier, that this man now, through these emails, is willing to give up Hunter Biden, to give up everything he knows about Joe Biden, to give up everything he knows about James Biden, Vice President's brother, to give up everything he knows about the whole Biden criminal enterprise, family enterprise. It's very interesting. I heard one person state, when Hunter Biden wrote to his sister, he said, I've had to take care of the family, not our family, the family. And it was interesting on TV that he showed a clip of The Godfather when Michael was talking to his brother Fredo, and he said, don't ever turn on the family again. So it's not just a loving, dear, caressing family. It's a family enterprise, business enterprise, criminal enterprise that the Bidens have been running. And it's still going on. And I bet you come to a very screeching halt right now. It's gotta. So Cooney provided his email and passwords to journalist Peter Schweitzer and Matthew Tierman and authorized them to all the information on there. Everything is there. The treasure trove that was found by the New York Post, given to them by the computer repair guy, simply because he knew he found. Now, the reason the computer repair guy gave the computer copy of the hard disk to Giuliani was because it had pornography on it, child pornography. And he thought it was illegal and needed to be turned in. And he also knew that it absolutely went contrary to everything they had said about Donald Trump and everything they had said about Joe Biden in a positive light. And it showed him truly in the true, real negative light. And so he gave it up. And everything that's come out of there has proven Joe Biden to be an out-and-out lie. Now, of course, pencil-necked Adam Schiff is saying it's Russia, Russia, Russia. But the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the DNI, Ratcliffe, have all said has nothing to do with Russia. That is just a smokescreen by a stupid, evil, also traitor to the United States, Adam Schiff, and along with his whole Democrat-Socialist party. This is the Joe Biden story, a story of corruption. He is an oligarch, and like all other oligarchs, he never does the dirty work. He lets the people around him do the dirty work. He never gets the dirt on him. He lets everybody else get the dirt, so if anything happens, they also take the penalty, and he comes off scot-free. These people are absolutely evil to everything that we believe in as Americans. We are at the crux of an election. We have a president who we know loves the United States, who doesn't need other people's money and is beholden to nobody. Would we throw him out of office? I beg of you. Think before you vote. Think of what you're giving up. Think of what you're giving over. It's your freedom. It's your family. It's your heritage. It's your nation. It's your future. This man will take America down to ruin. And if Kamala Harris takes over, she is the most liberal person in the whole Congress. And she is a socialist. We cannot let these evil people, we cannot let them have our country. Right now, there is a color revolution. It is starting now. And it's being done by the media. And it's being done by law enforcement in the FBI, by the Department of Justice. And it's also going to have hundreds of thousands of people on the street. It's all coming. Remember, I said it when you see it happen. So before you vote, let's go out and give Donald Trump a landslide victory that is unquestionable. They will not be able to say it wasn't fair or honest. And let's save America. Stand up, America. Wake up, America. Your country is under attack. And only you and I can save it. Let's save America now. Let's save our freedom. Let's save our children. God bless.